Real. Sorry, y'all. I'm cussing and acting crazy real quick, and I got y'all on, obviously, and wasn't aware of it. So y'all have to forgive me, please. I've committed a sin today. Great. I got the image I need, the view I need. Now, I want to make sure we got everybody there. Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? This is the water element class, in which we're going to deal with some things, and we're going to talk about some things about working with the water elements and working with the elements of water. Hey, everyone. Yeah, we definitely going to get into it tonight. I'm going to take my time tonight, too, and talk to y'all about... I can't take my shirt off. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm getting hot. I'm about to take my shirt off. But we're going to talk tonight about the water elements, and we're going to get deep into it. Let me get some things out of the way. Slide this down here. Yeah, now, I want to make sure everybody got an understanding of everything. I'm on my iPad, so I'll be seeing questions and everything. And I want people to have the general understanding about working with the moon first. You know, because when we work with the moon is in sync with the water. And the ocean tides, the way that the waters move on the planet, is all determined by the magnetic pulse that comes from the moon. Hold on for 1 second. We'll get everybody talking about that for a while. Good. Okay, I'm just making sure I got a good opening on everything. I'm reading with seashells. Of course, we talk about the water elements, so we're reading with some kind of seashells. And just briefly talking about divination with seashells. A lot of people don't know about it. Look at this shell. This shell is a spiral. You see the spiral? In ancient African science, we know about the spiral helix of the DNA structure, the spiral universe in which we live in. This geometric shape, image, is even in the shell, the spiral. So it has some kind of deep, energetic signature meaning to it. You know what I mean? Because from a signature aspect, the same spiral, we find in our DNA, okay? And we also find this in the ocean, in these seashells. There are many different seashells with many different geometric patterns that matches and resembles the patterns of the universe. So when we look into the sea, look deep into the sea, into the ocean, and we look deep into space and out into space, we see the same patterns. The shells make the same patterns that the star systems make, that the celestial movements make. These are some of the secrets of African science in reference to as above, so below. As above, as in the heavens, so below, in the seas. The same representations. So this is one of the reasons why I use this particular shell in reading. Okay, good to go. Now, and I usually do readings like that to open everything up when you're working with spirits. This is the water spirit class. So now, when we're talking about working with water spirits, we're working with water elements, we're going to talk about using organic things, organic elements to in tune and intact ourselves with the water element and the water nature. Now, when we got hurricane rainwater. No, this is actual regular rainwater here. I have a jug of hurricane rainwater. I'll be right back. Let me go get that. And right here we have the jug of hurricane rainwater. This is Hurricane Florence rainwater, 9/15/18. So we got this rainwater here. We got regular rainwater. We got ocean water. We got beach sand. We got seaweed. Now, what I did with this particular thing, I limit the roots and herbs because I think for the most part, most of us get caught up into working with particular roots and herbs versus working with the elemental nature, the energy of the plant you in contact with. And for that reason, I limit my herbal work. When doing root work, I limit it to very few specific herbs and specific ingredients for specific reasons. When working with the water spirits, many of us work with turtles as a totem animal. Many of root workers work with fish as a totem animal. Many root workers work with, what's another one? Crabs. You know, some people work with crabs and, any root work I've seen. Powdered crab shell. Powdered crab shells is something that's used for protection in root work. You see? Out of the ocean, we still talk about the water elements. Out of the ocean, powdered crab shells. Powdered turtle shells can be used for vision and clarity. You see? The powdered turtle shell for vision and clarity, because turtles are associated in African science. They're definitely affiliated with divination and having keen divining instinctive abilities. So, and this is why the turtle is definitely one of the forms of divination. Now, in African science, now remember, we still talk about the water elements, animals and everything that work with water. From the African perspective, the turtle, and we look and research certain specific African cultures, we find that the turtle shell itself is used for divination. You can place certain things in the turtle shell, put the turtle shell on the back, and you spin it in a certain direction. You either spin it to the left, you spin it to the right, and you draw certain symbols and seals on them. And when you spin it, and it spins and spins and spins, and it stops, it gives you a certain type of reading. You see? So many of the high priests in Africa use turtle shells for divination because those coastal peoples, on the coastal areas of Africa, they work with all of the animals and all of the totem spirits that had the ability to go in and out of water, because these people that where we came from, for the most part, were coastal water dwelling people, and we lived near the waters. So with that being said, when we talk about the rain waters and using the seaweeds and stuff like that, and remember I said something about ingredients. I said it in my last class about ingredients that we shouldn't get caught up into ingredient lists. We got that part. Okay, now, what would be our ingredient list? What is our ingredient list when we go to build our root work, to work with water spirits? What would be your ingredient list? And I'm just throwing it out there. I know you guys are here to learn, but I'm picking your brains to make you think. What would be your ingredient list? Now, I'm Geechee. Now, I'm going to tell you fish head, fish scales, fish tail, shark teeth, alligator tail, alligator toenail. Those things from a water perspective, spirits, those are some of the spiritual tools that we use when we work with the totem spirits. You see? That's why all water spirits in African traditions are connected to an animal. You see? From the root work and hoodoo perspective, we on the other end, we don't connect the spirit with the animal. We connect with the animal spirit. You see? This is what makes the root working different from ATRs. We don't connect the animal to a spirit. We connect to the animal's spirit. Okay? So what makes it different? Now, when we working at, now I really wanted to be at the water, and I got the river at the stream doing this, but it was cold and breezy out there, and I was compromised. So normally we on plain dirt with the setup, and I'm going to explain it for everybody, because when you approach the rivers or the ocean, there's a certain type of reverence that you should give for the energy that resides there. What we call this energy in some African cultures, not all, but in some African cultures, they call the energies that reside in specific places. They call these energies the Simbi energy or the Simbi spirits. The word Simbi technically means localities. So when you're talking about Simbi spirits, you're talking about the spirits of a locality. So when we talk about the Simbi spirits that live in the river, we're talking about the Simbi spirits that live in the swamps. We're talking about the Simbi spirits that live in the oceans and streams. So now let's go to the swamps first. Swamps. How will we use swamp water energy? Saints, how will we use it? That's a question. Somebody answer that for me, please. How will we use swamp water energy? Now let's look at the swamp water. Swamp water is dark. Swamp water is murky, right? It's dark and murky. Does swamp water move? The answer to that? No. Swamp water doesn't move. And it doesn't move because it's stagnated. What stagnates swamp water? It being contained and confounded into a specific locality with no entrance or exits for the water to flow. Okay? So that would be equivalent to someone's road being closed. That would be equivalent to holding somebody down. That would be equivalent to containment. Because this is what that space, that swamp space, is actually doing with the energy that's there. It's containing it. Nothing is moving. You see? So when you do your work, let's say you take a jar. You take this jar. You got somebody trapped in this jar or whatever you got in this jar. And you submerge that into the swamp. And you call on your ancestral spirits. And you say, well, I call on my ancestral spirits to contain this person, to hold this person down and stop this person from bringing any kind of pain and harm and any kind of chaos into my life, to divert this person, and this person goes off somewhere else and get lost in their own misery. And you submerge it in the water. You leave it. What happens after you consecrate your vessel? After you consecrate your vessel, after you place the elements in it, after you prayed over these elements, all according to the moons now, because we're going to get back to the moon. All according to the moons, you put everything in alignment and you submerge this into the swamp water. What happens? What happens is the energies that stagnated that area is going to enter here. Energy is going to enter here. And this, whatever desire that you placed here, mentally, metaphysically, emotionally, energetically, is going to fall into the Simbi energy of that locality. You see? So if this person here, if their essence here is in a high standard, doing good and feeling good and great and all over the place, once you put their essence into that locality that stagnated, what ended up happening is everything for that person slows down, and it's stagnated. Now that depends on the level of energy projection. I don't use intentions, trust me. I intended to be a millionaire a long time ago, and I intended to be a rock star and all that good stuff. I just didn't, my intentions didn't come through. So I don't deal with intentions, I deal with desire. Because we don't do what we intend to do, we do what we desire to do. Even if it goes against our better judgment. Human nature. All right, so we're talking about containment in the swamp water. Now, there are other things that you can contain. You can contain situations. So, we hoodoo, we root workers, we love jars. Root workers just love jars. So, you can contain an emotion. You can contain a situation that you're involved in and stagnate it. Like sometimes we might be caught in a situation where things are happening too fast for us. Like, whoa, this is happening too fast. I need to slow this down. Or, for example, you might not get married, but you might be in a relationship, a great relationship, and your spouse wants to push the relationship. Let's get married now. You're enjoying the relationship, but you just don't want to rush it. So what you would do is do some work to slow the process of the relationship down. Just slow it down. Not to tamper with it at all. Just to slow it down. So what you do, you place you and your spouse into the bottle. You bind yourself together. You do your own formula. Because I'm not here to tell people what to put in and mix up. I'm not here for that. You mix your own formula. You bind yourselves together. Then what? Submerge it into the swamps, because it'll stagnate the process of trying to get married. Now, people will say, well, that would stagnate the process of the relationship, wouldn't it? No, it would just slow it down. It won't stagnate, it just slow it down. Stagnation, slow down, kind of pretty much the same thing. But it slows the relationship down as long as you put her and you in a swamp. You see? That's one way of approaching it. But there's others. Now, remember, the swamp energy, the stagnated water, is how you contain and slow things down. Now let's look at running water. There's different types of running water, running rivers, running streams. Now, let's say we at a stream that's running straight out, 100 miles an hour, 365 days a year. Cool. How do we work with that water energy? That's a good question for y'all. How will we work with that water energy? We standing near a stream. Scenario. We standing near a stream, and this water is rushing. Everything's going that way, flowing straight past us, 100 miles an hour. How will we work with that water? Well, let's give ourselves a situation. Let's give ourselves a scenario. Let's say I just lost my job. My boss fired me. They called me down to the office. HR is upset. I done something stupid, or no call, no show. That's the perfect way to get fired. No call, no show. And I go down there and boom, I'm fired. I just lost my job. So now I'm working some prosperity work at the river, right? I got some of my favorite elements. I got my cinnamon. I got mint. I got some mint, cinnamon. I got all of my ingredients, honey, and all the other ingredients I be using. And I submerge myself, my essence. I take my pink slip and I burn it. I burn my pink slip and I put the ashes into the jar. I take my hair, I put my hair into the jar. I spit into the jar. I blow smoke into the jar. Then I go into transcendental states of meditation. Because if you ain't going to the transcendental state of meditation, all you're doing is mixing elements. You have to go into that transcendental state and transfer energy from your gut area up to your heart area, up to your head, out of your eyes, out of your nose, out of your mouth, and out of your ears psychically into the vessel to channel the energy there of what you really want, what you really need. Then you do what? The energy of this river is flowing from left to right. Right? From the negative aspects of your life, from the negative dark aspects of the situation, to the right, to the lighter. So what we do is we go to the left side of the river. We do our prayers to our ancestors. We do our consecrations on whatever we're working with. And then we submerged. Don't throw it in the water. We submerge the jar in the water. Here's a trick. You go to a tree. The tree that's on the riverbed or on the edge of the water. You find these trees. And let me tell you something about finding trees. You know, for those of us that know how to talk and communicate with plants, we just intuitively feel the energy bleeding off the plant that's telling us here, here, here. And for those of us that don't, the tree that's closest to the wayside, to the water. And for those of us that know how to do penny readings, trust me. 1 second. We do penny readings. You know, I got my 4 pennies here. And we do these penny readings. You get to the tree. You kiss the pennies. Tap the tree. And then you do your reading. And then you do your reading. And then you say, well, you ask the spirits of the earth. You ask your ancestors and the spirits of the earth to come forth and give you the vision and the clarity to know the work that you're doing is right and exact. And then if this place is a place where you can get your work done and manifest a goal. And then you drop. So now I got 3 yeses. There it is, 3 yeses. So 1, yes, heads, yes, heads, yes, heads. And this is the tails. So that means there might be a little tiny conflict with it, but ultimately, yes. You see? So now, we have actually communicated and made some kind of connection with this tree. And the spirit that lives in that tree guides you and lets you know, okay, this is acceptable here. And this is how our ancestors done things. You know, use a 4 penny reader, it's acceptable there. You take your bottle at this time, you take it and you wrap it. You know you're doing work to the right. So we want everything to go right. So you would wrap it 1, 2, 3 times, or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. You see, you're gonna wrap it 3 or 9 times around the top of your jar. Now, if you're a little more intense with your root work, you would feed your jar. Now, here's what I would tell you guys to do. I'm not going to show you. I'm going to only tell you. What you do is when you got your jar, you take your jar in front of the tree and you place it down. And you feed the jar. So after you put the many different essences in it, after you mix your ingredients, some people use honey in their jar as a base. Some people use olive oil in their jar as a base. It just depends on your preference in that department. When you open your jar with all of your base ingredients and everything binded or whatever kind of work you're doing is in there, you feed into the jar. When I say you feed into the jar, that's a great question. A lot of people don't understand the power of totem animal spirits. And this is what we were talking about. Totem animal spirits when we're working with. So now we're working with a water spirit. We're making a water jar. We're working in the water. What totem animal spirit should we use in that jar? I'm waiting on the answer for that, y'all. I'll be right back. I'm waiting on that answer. Please, somebody work on me. Y'all with me? Or y'all not forgot about me? Yeah, I need you to repeat the questions for me, though, because I need eyes. To remove something out of your life, some type of water element animal. Yeah. Crab. Okay, crabs are good. Crabs are good. Crabs are good. But why would you use a crab in your water work? Tell me that. Seriously. Why would you use a crab in your water work? Crab shell have protection. Yeah, they provide protective energy. Generally any kind of shell, just depending on what kind of species of animal it is, in essence carries protection. Backwards. What do you mean, Tanal, when you say backwards? What do you mean? I'm with y'all. I'm still waiting. To remove bad luck from you. Yeah, but that would work also. Yeah. All right. So now, let me tell you what kind of totem spirit animals you should work with water. Now, I'm not telling you should work with. I'm just saying, from my perspective, I work with fish, and let me tell you why. Because I'm a Geechee Gullah person. You know what I mean? We eat fish. In fact, in our culture, in the Geechee Gullah culture, we are called fish heads. I don't know if people know about it, but that's kind of offensive to somebody that's Geechee. If you call them a fish head, this kind of offensive because our love for fish and working with fish. But this is one of the reasons why I use fish in the work. When I'm working with water spirits, you cut the fish head off. Fishes have the most outstanding vision while underwater. You ever notice that sunlight actually penetrates the top 10% of the ocean? Everything below that is complete total darkness. Fishes have the ability to see in absolute darkness in the depths of the sea. And for that reason, we cut the fish head off. We extract the eyes. And the eyes are used in the water bowls for scrying, for divination. You see? I'm gonna let that soak in for a second for you. I know that's new. You ain't hear that one there before. Let it soak in. Soak in. That's the old root working. Let it soak in. So now, we're still on the water now. We're still talking about water. Now let me give y'all an idea of what we have here. We know we have the waters. Oh, we're still talking about, now remember, we're still talking about the flowing of the rivers. The flowing of the rivers. Remember what we did here? We fed the animal, the totem spirit, the fish, right? You can feed a fish, some fish bleed. Put the blood inside your jar. You see? You can feed a turtle in your jar. You can feed that turtle into your jar and you call on your ancestral spirits when you feed them. You cut, you slit him and cut his neck and you call on your ancestral spirits to release the spirit of this totem animal into this jar so that the spirit can ride with you, the spirit can protect you, the spirit can carry out your desires. And you commanded the spirit to be under your total control through the power of your ancestors. And if you bleed that animal out into your jar, you take the rest of it. There's other things you're going to do with it that's outside of the scope of what I talk about right now. But yes, you can do other things with the animal. You extract the shell and you do some other things. But that just take you on from just the jar by you adding into the blood of the totem animal. It takes the work from just being a regular jar into a whole dynamic work now with a spirit attached to it. You see? And that's the difference between just doing regular root work without a spirit attached to it and doing root work with a spirit attached to it. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. What I am saying is that there's a higher concentration of energy in one versus the other. And even that depends on the level of energy of the root worker, him or herself. All right. So now we done made this jar. We done threw it in. We done delivered it in the water, not throw it. Delivered it in the water. And guess what we did? We tied. Remember, we fed. We made it. We fed it with the blood. We sealed it. We sealed it, right? And then we tied a fishing rod around the neck of it. And we tied it to that tree. Remember the tree that we originally did the 4-penny reading at. Okay? I got the 4 pennies right there. We did the 4-penny reading in front of that tree that said, yes, this is the place that you can do this blessing at. We tie the fishing rod around our jar, tie it to the tree, around the tree 3 times. Or the whole time we walk around this tree 3 times, we call on our ancestors and we tap in the tree. We call on our ancestors and we kiss the tree. We call on our ancestors and we hug the tree. We call on our ancestors and we light a candle in the tree for our ancestors that we already consecrated. Then we tie it and we let it go in the river. We let it flow in the direction so that your essence here can catch on the energy of the current of the flow of the water going in the right direction, which empowers your work. Eventually it'll snap and your work will be like released out into the atmosphere. You see, that's just one way. That's just one way of doing it with a jar. Now there's other work. You can wrap it in a cloth. You can wrap your work in a cloth and tie it. It's fine. This is root working. It doesn't have to be in anything specific. Doesn't have to be in anything specific. All right? And that's what we work with the water spirit. Now there's another type of flowing river or stream that flows this way Monday and Tuesday, that way Wednesday and Thursday, this way Friday, Saturday, this way Sunday and Monday. How will we work an area like that? A stream or a river like that? The question is, how will we work a river or stream that flows in opposite directions? Monday is left, Tuesday is right. How will we work a stream or river like that? Question. I would love an answer, please, somebody. Y'all ready? Let me see. What do y'all think? What do y'all think? Peace, Charles. What's going on, brother? What do y'all think? I'm waiting on the answer, man. I'm not going to talk again until I get an answer, man, from y'all smart people, man. Y'all got to give it to me tonight. Y'all got to get it up now. Let's go. That's smart. But let's say chancing, okay, let's say you can't get back out there. Let's say if you're doing right-wing work, you're trying to manifest some abundance. So you see that this river is flowing to the right. You go out there and you tie your work to that tree and you let your work go on that river to the right. But you come back Tuesday, that river is going to the left. You getting phone calls about that work you did. Things just going crazy. That's not a good move at that point. You see? Because you got to think like a root worker. If I'm in a changing river, that Monday goes to the left, Tuesday goes to the right, wouldn't that consistently change the situation of the direction of the power within the work? Yeah, of course it would. Pull out the water. Yeah, well, you could pull it out the water, but like I say, Charles, let's think deeper. Let's go deeper. When I have a dual, I call it a dual river. Monday goes right, Tuesday goes left. Wednesday goes right, Thursday goes left. How do I work that area? Right? That would work. Ask your spirits. But let's say you don't ask your spirits. Let's say you're using total intuition, intuitive vision to feel the essence of this place, right? So when I walk out to a river and I see on Monday it flows to the right, Tuesday to the left, the first thing I get is conflict. There's a conflict within the path of this river that causes it to go one way on Monday, and there's a conflict that causes it to go one way to the different way Tuesday. You see? So if I'm going to submerge any work in waters like that, I'm going to submerge work that's conflicting work, you know? And this is one way how you work with the water spirits and causing, a little conflict, confusion. You might have to cause a little conflict, confusion. You find you a wayward river that flows, one way, another way, and then you go and tie the person down into the river. You tie the work down into the river. And you just let it go one way and then one day, another way another day, and another way another day, and you just keep that work going on them. You see? Exactly, absolutely. Because it's chaotic. Same thing if you go to the Niagara Falls. You go to the Niagara Falls and you go to work your work with all that raging, ripping water. What kind of energy do you think that would bring into a person's life? Raging and ripping energies, right? Yeah, of course. Because we're dealing with Simbi energies, the energies of the locality. You see? So the energy of that locality is push, 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 push. What do you think that's going to bring into a person's life? Push, 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 push. You see? That's how it works for the most part. Now, that depends on the level of energy that sorcerer, that root worker, that witch can project out of him or herself into the work and absorb the energy of the locality and project it out at their objective. You see? That's how that works. Now, we already talked about the swamp water, the stagnant nature, and some ideas of working stagnant situations there. We talked about the free-flowing river that flows in one direction to the right. We know we put good work in there. Prosperity, abundance, blessings, honor, gratitude work. And then we know the river, the flows that go to the left, we do more of the dark stuff. Now, what happens when you go to a river that flows to the left, right? This river flows to the left and you're on a full moon. Think about it and answer that one. I'm waiting on y'all. Come on now. Charles, where you at, buddy? So tell me what happens. One more time. You got a river that's flowing to the left, right? And you have a full moon, right? All right, so now first let's talk about what kind of work can we do at the full moon? Mistress, you answer that for us? Mistress, answer that for us, please. Left-hand path work? Yeah, we can do that left-hand path work. Right? Negative energy, okay. Negative repelling energy. Do you think that working on the full moon for protection is a good thing? Well, we know about the werewolf story, about how people transform. I think that story is more about, when a man sees the full moon and he transforms into the werewolf, for the most part, that's talking about the transformation of energy, that your animalistic nature, the animalistic totem power spirit that dwells within you can be fully activated You know, so your inner totem animal, your inner totem being is activated at the full moon. This is why a woman's menstrual cycle is governed by the full moon. This is why the body, the waters in the body of man and woman rises at the full moon. You see, even within our bodies, there's certain chemical, especially with men, there's certain chemical changes that happens during the full moon. Men, for the most part, the water levels in our brains actually rise during the full moon cycle. The water that's in our brains actually increase. For women bleed out. You see, women bleed out water. Men water increase during the full moon. What does that mean? When we look at water, water is a conduit of consciousness. Water is a conduit of energy. So during the research of studying water, I ran across some research from China, in which these Chinese researchers, they pull blood out of a man in one room. In that room, they changed the temperature to below 30 degrees, where it was very cold in the room. And they took a pint of his blood, and they placed that pint of blood into another room that was room temperature. But because he was in another room freezing his tail off, his blood in the other room that was room temperature showed chemical reactions as if it was freezing in that room also. What that means, what that meant from the research is that your blood in your body still communicates with your body even though it's outside of your body. So that chemical reaction that he experienced in the room freezing, that pint of blood that was in the other room reacted in the same manner even though it was not cold in that room. What it means is that your blood, the water, transfers consciousness. Even though the blood was removed from his body, his consciousness was still in the blood, in the water. And this is one of the main reasons why we as spiritualists, as African spiritualists, root workers, use water. This is why water is so prominent in every African culture, because it carries consciousness. And if you learn and you know how to project your consciousness into the water, you learn that water is really a vortex. Once you develop your psychic abilities and you gaze into the water, you stare into the water, you begin to see images and things. Only if you are psychic intuitive, you would be able to see things. So developing your psychic abilities is very important in this aspect, because developing your psychic abilities place you in a position to master the skill and open up your channels and see things that people normally don't see. Even though water transfers energy, even though water transfers consciousness, even though water stores ancient history, ancient consciousness, you still have to develop your psychic ability and work on your own psychic abilities in order to read the signatures that's being delivered and distributed through the water. All right? So when we look at even our organs in our body, how they're affected by, like even the lungs take air, right? And generally the lung is an organ governed by the air element, right? True. Well, true and false. The lungs deal with a lot of air at the top of the lungs. At the bottom of the lungs, it deals with water, blood. Good blood actually fills the lungs to a certain point. And then air has to come into the lungs at a certain point. So when blood enters a certain parts of the, lungs, then, you could be in danger of choking and drowning on your own water. The balance in all of this is that the water element, it works side by side with the air element inside the lungs. So when I say that there is a mixture of elements, when we say earth, water, what organic element is both earth and water? Well, one of them is a coconut. A coconut is an element that's earth and water. It comes from a tree, yes, but it contains pure water inside of it. So on the elemental chart, when we're talking about earth, air, fire, and water, which we are discussing in this series, there is a part of it that shows the blending of the elements. So when you blend, what happens when you blend earth with water? Well, the same thing happens when you got beach sand and you have the ocean right there too. The two elements compromise, they work together to bring forth a perfect union inside your working. All right, that's just the lecture part of it. Well, mud too, yeah, mud definitely, because see, mud can go in different directions. Now, mud is a whole different ball game. We didn't even discuss the mud inside the earth element class, but when we do discuss mud, I'll say this about mud. Mud is mixed, and in Africa, people use mud to mold spiritual vessels. You know, when we see these big, huge dirt mounds and we see people feeding them, those are actually vessels for spirits. You see? But we'll get to that later. Back to the water elements. Now let's go over here and look at some things. Remember I told you about the seaweed and the fish and the alligator teeth and the crocodile tails, and all of those totem elements are used in the waterworks. But what about the water itself? Let's get down with this water. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got here. So here, I'm going to say this. When we go out in front of the water, there's certain things we do. Now, me, personally, I work with a lot of seashells and things like that. When you work with the water elements, you want to pull your seashells from the water. You want to consecrate your seashells. Now, we're going to have a whole huge discussion about consecration because there are many different spiritual ways of consecrating something. And there's no one particular way. So you can consecrate something by holding it in your hand. Now, blowing smoke on it. Blowing air on it. Rubbing it on your head. Because you want your essence on everything that you touch. And this is why we don't let other people touch our spiritual stuff. Because we put our essence on it. Your energy flows throughout your whole body. So by rubbing things on your body, you extract the energy from your body onto it. So you have to make sure that you're in the right emotional state when you do these things. Because if you're stressed out, when you charge something, you're charging it with the energy of stress. You see? So you have to make sure that you're in a perfect mental and emotional state of mind when you're charging these things. Now, I use shells. Some people you can use 9. This is some Gullah, Geechee Gullah type, whatever. But we use a certain kind of powder. I learned that the certain powder, it does some certain things as far as protection and containment. One of the ingredients that people use to contain spirits in African cultures and traditions is cornstarch. Cornstarch is one of them. Arrowroot powder. Arrowroot powder as another. Cornmeal, people use cornmeal. People use a combination of those elements based on the type of water spirits or the type of spirits in general they work on. In this situation, I have a mixture of arrowroot powder with my specific formula for protection and containment of energy. So when we sprinkle the powder around our offering plate, we do it in the essence that the ancestors come forth and bless us. So when I'm pouring the powder around, let me see if I can find my bag. So when we're doing the powder around, you definitely want to pray when you're doing this. Call forth the ancestors of whatever bloodline you are of, and you call forth them to manifest the truth, manifest the blessings, manifest the abundance, to give you the vision. Call for your guardian spirits to protect you, all this good stuff. Your whole prayer. You have to engage yourself into the essence of the work. So when you're sprinkling, you talking to your ancestors. You're communicating with them as if they're here. Not praying, communicating. You see? Because you're calling them forth through you. You're the channel. So when you do that, remember where we're at. We're inside now, but in essence, we're at the river. In essence, we're at the beach. We have these shells laid down on the sand. We put our powders around. We have our waters. Water spirits love sweet things. So we would have oils. We have oils. They love perfumes and everything. Anything sweet, the water spirits love. When it comes to offerings, it's always watery foods, watery and sweet things. Sweet and watery. So when we think about sweet and watery, we think about cantaloupes. It's pretty watery, but not as much as a watermelon. Okay? Any kind of melon is watery. So when you're talking about giving offerings to the water spirits, what you give them should be extremely watery. Okay? Watermelon is one of them. Couldn't find any watermelons all week. I'm a place where they don't sell watermelons. So I'm a root worker, right? And I can't find no watermelons. What I'm going to use? Me? You can find it anywhere you go. Seaweed. Seaweed, you find it anywhere you go. And seaweed is a great ingredient to use because it grows in the depths of the sea, on the sides of the sea. And it carries the energy of the ocean from under it. So this is one of the ingredients that many root workers use. Seaweed is also a very good health additive. You know, you can eat seaweed. Pretty tasty. Matter of fact, seaweed tastes like shrimp. No, more like oyster. To me, it does. Tastes like oyster. You know, real good, you know. But, for the most part, the seaweed is great to use in your work. Now, why would I use seaweed and mint? Aren't we trying to sweeten up a situation? So here's how this goes. So we're going to do some water work. And we're going to work with some water spirits. Water spiritual energy here. So I'm going to get some water. This is rainwater. We're not going to use rainwater. We're actually going to use some river water. Be right back. All right. All righty. Now, when preparing yourself to work with the water spirits, right? One of the things we're going to do, well, one of the things many people do, is when you're working with a water spirit, seriously, and the ATR, if you understand the spiritual symbol of that spirit, you would place it here. But we're not dealing with the ATR, but I'm just giving y'all a secret. You could place your protective symbol here. You could place your sigil here. You can place your seal here. So when you go here for whatever spirit you're working with, don't mix and blend stuff. Whatever spirit you're working with, you place the seal there. You give yourself some water, rainwater here. Now, I'm going to say this. I almost did a reading this now, but somebody by the name of Danielle, right, I saw in here. She drives school bus. This girl, Danielle, drives school bus. That's another story, but there's something I saw. Now, let me tell you something to give you an idea. I got myself caught up in the reading. Y'all gotta work with me for a second. I got myself caught up into seeing something actually for real. But here's what I'm gonna tell y'all. What I just did this now is a form of scrying with working with water spirits. Because what I did something, and I prayed something, and I conjured something, and the herbs that was used for the water spirits and the water that's used for the water spirits is used to divine. So after I divine with it, and I use and I see everything I need to see, I take the herbs. See? I take the herbs. After I see what I see, I take the herbs. You know? I take the herbs and I wash myself with it. You see? You take the herbs and you wash yourself with the seaweed and the mint. Now, there's other ingredients you can put in there. You can put oils inside your bath. You put coconut water in there. You can put honey to sweeten up the situation. You can put cinnamon to sweeten up the situation. But when you give your offerings, always give your offerings with fruits. I got fruits and stuff like that to give. I keep pineapples. I just gotta move everything out of the way. I always give my spirits. I always give my spirits big stuff, man. You know, I give them this big stuff. And when I cut the fruit, I cut the fruit to my spirits and I give it to them. And then I squeeze the juice into it as you pray, as you ask your ancestors to deliver the nutrients to your soul, deliver the nutrients to your spirit. As the nutrients live in this for your body, you want this energy from these plants, from the organic spirit, from the organic nature of the plants, to bless and consecrate your work. So that the energy from the spirit of that tree can live within you. And you pour it into it, offer the rest of your spirits as an offering, and you take it and you wash yourself with it. After you give your offerings, you wash yourself with the herbs. You wash yourself with the herbs. Why? To receive the blessings from the water spirits. These items comes out of the water. These items are infused in the water, magically mixed, consecrated, blessed. Your essence is placed upon it. And then you take it, after you placed all the blessings on it, consecrated, you wash yourself with it. And you ask your ancestors to remove all afflictions from you, all kind of burdens from you, all kind of afflictions, all kind of worries, worriations, all kind of financial debt, all kind of relationship problems. You ask them to pull all of these things off you and cleanse your soul of that. You see? Then you place these things back in the water. You rinse them out. In the water. See? You wring the herbs out. Now you placed all of you ask your ancestors to bless you with all your afflictions and everything. You take the herbs that you cleanse yourself with. You've cleansed yourself with the herbs. You wash yourself with it. Now you put it in water and you take it to the river. You don't pour it down the sink when you do a spiritual bath. For the water spirits, never pour it down the sink. Always take it to the river. When you pour your blessings down the sink goes where? The sink pipes goes what? To the sewer. So you bless yourself with your energy and you actually ask us to bless you, but you pour your blessings into the sink. It's wrong. You see? Because you pour your blessing into the sink, into the sewer system. That's what you're doing now. That's what we're doing now. No. We take our bath and we take it to the river. And this is for one of the reasons that why many of us we make spiritual baths and the whole object of when you make that spiritual bath, you use it then. You don't dispose of the rest of it because it has a blessing on it. So if you don't use it, you should dispose of it in a proper way. Either bury the rest of the bath if you're not going to use it, or pour it into the river, a stream, ocean. Why? You consecrated something with your energy. So when you pour it down the sink, oh, this bath ain't no good no more. You pour it down the sink, well, I'm not going to use the rest of this. You pour it down the sink, what happens? You pour your blessings down the drain. Remember, this is spirituality. Everything we do has to matter. And this for the reason, like, if I cleanse you, let's say I cleanse you with a chicken, with a rooster. If I cleanse you with a rooster, I'm not going to give you that rooster and tell you, take the rooster and go bury it somewhere. That's me giving you back your dirt. I cleanse you with it, I should dispose of it. Because I'm not going to take your own dirt back and you go bury it. You're going to attract the same energy back onto you. Like that. Bad process, my opinion. So after we finish our bath and we pour it out into the river, into the water, in the stream, we letting our water spirits know that yes, I've cleansed myself. Yes, I've gave my ancestors an offering to the river. And this is part of my cleansing. This is part of my abundance that I'm asking you to give to me. I've done everything I've done properly, and you pour it into the ocean. See, you pour your cleansing into the ocean so that the ocean, the water spirits, the ancestral spirits that live in the waters of the ocean can handle the issue for you, take care of the problem for you. This is one of the ways, simple, very simple way of working with the water spirits. Yes, you can do divination in your bath. Yes, you can. You can scry into it the same way I blew the smoke into it and I looked into it and I saw this girl named Danielle who's a school bus driver. I got to get into that later. And one of you guys may know Danielle. One of you guys may know a Danielle, who's a school bus driver. Who knows? But this is part of the process. You can scry into it, you blow smoke and you scry into it, and you can read. You can read by the leaves, the way that the leaves are interpreted. Well, you can't read it because you have to learn how to read the leaves and the sticks and the stems that's in the water and know what it's doing when you stir it. You have to know what you're looking at. You have to know what it is. When you talk about a path, I'm stirring this water and I'm saying, okay, what's up with Charles' path? Does Charles have a great path? And I stir this water and I stir this water and I want to know if Charles has a great path. And when I stir it, I stop and I look. The first thing I see is a sailboat. I see a sailboat with Charles on it. So Charles might have been fishing this weekend or planning to go fishing or planning to be on a boat sometime within the next 14 days. I would ask Charles that, man. Is that true, Charles? You going on a boat the next 14 days? I wonder if that's true. Let's see. Let me ask Charles. I'm waiting on you, Charles. Let me see. You going on a fishing trip soon? Or you just got finished on the fishing? Hey, listen, man, this is crazy, yo. I don't know what to say, man. Hey, you ain't been talking to me and letting me know you been going fishing. You know what I mean? Oh, you was fishing before you came on for the class? Huh, Charles? Oh, I know I got a little small delay. Oh, man, that's crazy, yo. See, now that's crazy. Now I done called Charles out on a water divination with my herbs, and I, this is crazy. And he just was fishing, and I saw him on a boat fishing. And I'm psychic, I guess. What the hell? But I'm kind of perplexed at that. But creek water working to this. Creek water Oh man, I'm kind of perplexed at that one, Charles. Man, we got to talk offline later, man. But creek water, it just depends on the creek water. Is the creek water flowing or is it stagnant? Um, it just depends. It just depends. Now, if the creek water is murky and it's flowing, then you could flow a murky situation. You know what I mean? You can flow someone into a murky situation, or you can flow someone out of a murky situation with murky creek water. Because murky water is like dark, like grayish, and it's going to bring a kind of dark tone to your work. Now, if it's stagnated, it's going to be a dark tone, period. But if the murky water is flowing, it's going to be a consistent flow of murkiness within your work. You see? So if you're working on somebody and you say, well, I want to work on them, and most people who try to work fast, sometimes some jobs are best to work it slow so you can see what's taking place and unfolding as it unfolds. You see? So for that reason, when it comes to using murky water, I like murky water because it flows and it doesn't flow rapidly. It flows slow flow, so you can slowly bring somebody down or slowly remove something out of somebody's life. That's how the murky water goes. No. I'm still kind of perplexed about this fishing trip Charles just did and this reading I just did. But that's how it works. You can actually scribe into your bath. I never really told nobody that, but when you make a spiritual bath, and we're still talking about water, when you make a spiritual bath, there are techniques you can learn. That when you mix your herbs and everything in your bath and you spinning it and spinning it and spinning it and you stop and you look into it, you're going to see an image. And the image you saw, like I saw the boat with Charles on it and fishing and all of that there, hey, it's real. So that's part of the divination. Now, we can do more scrying with the water, and I would love to do a whole water reading for somebody, but I'm not. But it definitely works. Let's see what else we got out there. Any more questions, man? Y'all got to hit me with the questions. I know I'm kind of pouring out information, but I want y'all to work with me. A lot of moss. Well, I was always taught that moss, especially like Spanish moss, they're like the beards of the trees. So if there's a lot of moss, it kind of gives me the idea that those trees are old. Not only that, you can work a voodoo doll. You can make a doll out of moss. Now, if you find moss by the water, you can make a water spirit voodoo doll. So let's say you got a tree that grows right there by the water, and the moss is hanging down, and the moss falls in the water, and you pull the moss out the water. See, now that tree that lives right there next to that water, it has the energy of the earth and the water on it. So that moss that gets wet by the water contains both energy. So you take that you take that moss and you go pack it into a doll. You see, you pack that moss into a doll. You pray on it, consecrate it, do the work you need to do on it. Pack it into a doll. Add your ingredients, of course. You would place the person in the center of the moss and the ball of it, and you tie it and do what you need to do. And you can use that and install that into a jar. Like a lot of people don't know, you could put a doll in a jar. You don't have to make a huge doll. You can make a small doll. It don't have to be no bigger than this. Small doll, moss, pack it, and trap the doll in the jar. And submerge the jar into the water. The murky water, the rapid running water, the water that runs to the left and the right, the stagnant water, whatever situation or you're dealing with, you can make a tiny doll. Because size does not matter. People think, oh, I got a gigantic, huge spirit pot. I'm powerful. You can have somebody with a spirit pot the size of a cup of coffee that could crush you. It's not about the size. It's about the essence of the energy that's there. So when I say you can take a tiny voodoo doll and you can infuse that voodoo doll, that doll, with all kinds of different kind of works, tie it up and bind it into a jar and submerge it in the water to the water spirits to have them deal with it. You see, anchor it. When you're doing kind of dark work, you don't want to hang it like how we tied the first jar to the tree. You don't want to hang it like that. You want to submerge it, push it into the mud, into the water. You see? And put a stone on top of it, of course. Usually when work is done like that, you submerge the jar into the mud of the water and you place a specific amount of stones on top of it. So if you're doing ancestral work on somebody, you will place 9 huge stones on top of the spot, the way you submerged the jar or whatever vessel you had when you submerged it into the dirt, into the water. 9 huge stones. If you're closing somebody's path, or if you're opening somebody's path, when you submerge your jar down, you can submerge your jar down with 3 huge stones on top of them. The general idea is when you get those 3 stones, you consecrate those 3 stones. The general idea is when you get those 9 stones, you consecrate those 9 stones separately. Then you place them on top of the spot the way you submerge the jar or whatever your vessel is in. Okay? You submerge it there. You do your work and you ask the ancestors to bless you. Definitely never turn your back on any river or body of water. Always step back at least 5 times before you turn around and walk away from any river, any stream, any water. That is a form of veneration for the water spirits, because it's generally held across African cultures that water spirits don't like to be disrespected. So always keep your eyes on the water as you're backing away from it, because they want you to always remain in constant remembrance of them, because there are many ancestors that died during the transatlantic slave trade, of course, and for that reason, we show that type of reverence, All right, any more questions? Let's see where we at. Okay. So now that we covered a lot about working the dynamics of water spirits, right? Now, we learned about cleansing ourselves, generally cleansing ourselves with the water spirits. Then we learned how to do a little scrying. I showed you guys about a little bit of scrying. And that little bit of scrying came out to be a lot because I told something that was really true. Then we dealt with giving the blessings, that we cleanse ourselves with the herbs for the water spirits. And we ask the water spirits to do certain things for us. Then we go into the river and we pour our blessings out into the river. You see? That's how that works. Now, there's another thing I can do. Now, let's say the weather is cold as ice here. The wind is blowing. It's just bad weather for me to go out to the river, right? But I have that cleansing I just did. What am I going to do with it now that the situation has changed? I can't go to the river. How would I do it? Would I pour it down the drain? No. So what would I do? That's my blessings in there, right? I cleanse myself and my ancestors, and those are my blessings, either my blessings or my cursings. So what would I do? I can go in my yard, dig a hole, and pour it in there. You see? Dig a hole in my yard, pour my blessings down to ground it. You see? Remember, I use herbs also with the water. You see? Exactly, Chanson. Because remember, herbs is in the water. So this is a combination of earth and water elements. So I can actually release the energy of my work in either 2 places, in the earth or at a body of water. So if I can't make it, if I live too far from a river, if I can't make it because of inclement weather, but I need to do my spiritual work, then my alternative is I go into my backyard, my front yard, because these are my blessings. In my front yard, I dig a hole and I pour it in there, and I feed the earth at the same time. When I say feed the earth, you take some grains, any kind of grain. Why I say any kind of grain? That's just me talking, y'all. Grains, whole grain,
oats, corn, beans, you know, and you feed the earth. You know, we black people, we get you gullah, you know, we like to snap a peas and all of that. But make sure you get it raw. And you take your time and you snap them, and you snap them into the hole. And every time you snap them, you calling forth one of your ancestors. You know, James Taylor, I call you forth to give me blessings and prosperity. John Doe, I call you forth. Every time you snap one, and you throw it in the hole and you call forth an ancestor. You call forth a blessing for yourself. You call forth a manifestation for yourself. You call forth that new house for yourself, that new job for yourself, that new spouse for yourself, that new happiness for yourself. And you throw it into the hole. Throw it into the hole. You turn around and you pour honey into the hole. And as you pour in the honey, you ask your ancestors to sweeten up every situation that you can come up with for yourself. You ask them to sweeten it up. To bring some love in the situation, to bring some sweetness, to make these people who don't like you love you. To make these people that hate you like you. And you pour it into the hole in a circular direction. To the right, of course. You know, 9 times, 9 circles to the right is enough for you to actually communicate with your ancestors. And now after you fed the earth, after you place your blessings in there, you fed the earth, the greens, the whole greens. You put honey on top of it to sweeten up all your blessings. Then you cover that hole. You cover that hole and you place 3 candles on top of that hole to open your path. And you ask your ancestors, you stomp on that hole too. You stomp on it. That's right. To ground it. You stomp on it 3 times. Boom, boom, boom. Ground it. Each time you stomp and you calling forth your ancestor to receive your blessings. You calling forth the earth spirits to receive your blessings and ground your blessings in a way that nobody can remove them from you. And you stomp on the ground 3 times. You light your 3 candles and you leave. You see? You can just dissolve your work just like that and it's perfectly fine. Everything determines on the amount of emotionality that you place into your ritual act. It depends on the level of consciousness you're at, the brainwave state you're in when you're conducting your ritual process. Okay? So when we go to make offerings to the water spirits, I mentioned earlier that we use fruits like watermelon, fruits that are highly watery. I couldn't find a watermelon. I wish I did have one. I would have showed y'all some things with it. But the watermelon, which is like my favorite offering to the water spirits, we usually cut them. We cut the watermelon in half. Okay? We cut the watermelon in half. Some people put candles in the watermelon. When they cut them, they put 9 candles, 5 candles, and they light all of them up and they walk into the ocean. As you walk into the ocean with this watermelon cut in half with the 9 candles burning, you walk out there into the water, and at each step you take, you make 1 step, you call forth your ancestors and you call forth a blessing. You make and this is your right foot. When you step with your right foot, you call forth a blessing. When you step with your left foot, you remove a curse. Step with your right foot, invoke a blessing. Step with your left foot, remove a curse. And this is as you're walking into the water with the watermelon, with 5 candles or 9 candles. The preference is basically yours. 9 is for the ancestors when you're doing ancestral work. 5 is for the spiritual nature of the water spirits. So whichever you choose, whichever works better for you, according to your practice, is what you do. So once we chop this watermelon in half, once again, you put your 5 candles down into the watermelon, push them down, and you light it, and you walk out into the ocean. Right foot, you call forth and invoke your blessings. Left foot, You call out and remove every curse that you think and know that you have on you. Every bad intention and habit that you know you have on you, you remove it with every left foot step you take. And as you get deep into the water enough to let the watermelon go, worry not about the fire, because when the water outs the fire, that brings an end to all your burdens and all your worries. Okay? This is how water spirits work, and this is one of the basic processes. I would say great processes, but trust me, this basic process can be so great for you. This is something that I personally do, and this is something that could be so great for you to help change when you attune yourself to the energies of the water. Remember, we are 85% water as beings. So when we submerge ourselves into the ocean, you see, we attune ourselves with the water energy. We absorb. That's why when we go into the ocean, you ever go to the ocean, you be in there for 20, 30 minutes, you come out, you feel refreshed. Because the particles within the water, they reinvent you from a conscious level. All of the memory of the whole planet Earth is in the ocean. So when we walk into the ocean, it's like we are tuning ourselves to the Akashic records. I'm going to repeat that. When we walk out into the ocean, it's just like we are tuning ourselves to the Akashic records. Because within the consciousness of the water, of the planet, is the whole human history. Everything is contained within the consciousness of water. Because water is the foundation element of life on the planet. That's why when scientists go out in space, what are they looking for? Water. Because they know when they find water, they find consciousness. But they tell us life. Nah, not life, consciousness. Because organisms living, breathing organisms live in water. And organisms, to scientists, is a form of life, which they are. Germs, life. Bacteria, life. See? That's how it works. So now, you have any more questions? Let's go. Let me see the questions, y'all. Tarnil says, can you bury the work of well? Yeah, we already talked about that. Burying the work. You sure can, especially when you're dealing with earth and water elements together. That's a yes. Any more questions? And I understand I have a short delay, so I'm going to kind of wait on you guys to put a question out there. Charles, you still with me? You know we got to talk after this class. So now, okay, I'm waiting on you then. I'm going to wait on you, Micaiah. Let's wait on Micaiah to get her question out. But when we're talking about rainwater, all right, let's talk about rain. We done talked about the oceans and the rivers. Let's talk about this rain. Let me tell you a story. One time I was going to the cemetery with a friend of mine, my buddy. And man, listen, that day was totally clear. It was kind of a little murky a little bit. Man, as soon as we got in the cemetery, boom, y'all. Sky opened up. Man, we was wet. We was really, 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 really wet. And yeah, we was really, really wet. And I didn't understand that day, because I'm like, dang, man, I ain't never went to the cemetery like that, man. And got trapped off, and we ended up getting trapped off, and obviously we was wet. But from that experience, we realized something unique about the water spirits. Like water spirits is on the earth, but water spirits is also in the sky. You see? Because the water come out of the sky and hit us good. You know, so when we're talking about rainwater, what are we talking about? We're talking about magnetized water. Okay? What is magnetized water? Well, the earth, the ocean water is magnetized also because it flows over rocks. It flows over magnetized rocks. So when water flows over magnetized rocks, the water becomes magnetized. Another aspect of power for water. So in the sky, condensation happens. From condensation, what we have is electrical impulses within the atmosphere. It goes into the water. The electric impulses of the atmosphere that flows into the water that's in the atmosphere, it builds the water up until where it's too heavy to be suspended in clouds. When it's too heavy to be suspended in clouds, that water falls down to the earth due to the pull of gravity. That pull of gravity is called rain. Cool. So now, this rain is coming down, went through a high-tech chemical process up in the sky that leaves it highly magnetized. So when it hits the earth, what happens? The magnetism from the sky merges with the magnetism of the earth, correct? Okay. What happens when we catch that water before it hits the earth? What happens before the magnetized water from the sky touches the magnetized dirts of the earth? Now, what happens if we catch that water before it touches the earth? That's a good question. I'm asking all that. What happens when you catch rainwater before it touches the earth? Because you have to remember, water is magnetized in the sky, the earth is magnetized. But by catching that water before it touches the earth, what happens? I'm waiting on y'all. Y'all still with me? What happens? You definitely capture that power. And you are definitely intercepting that energy. That's the word I was looking for, interception. Okay? So when we intercept energy, remember, rain falling from the sky, hitting the earth is a natural process. There's nothing unnatural about rain. Okay? What happens is when we catch that rainwater, before it hits the earth, we step in between the natural process. You see? You step in between the natural process. Now you got this water that's magnetized from the atmosphere only. I'm going to repeat that. When you catch rainwater, you trap water that's magnetized by the air only. This is how you catch water-air elements, okay? I'm going to go over this. This is how you catch water-air elements. You have water-earth elements, right? Because once the water hits the earth, the water becomes a water-earth element. But if it never hits the earth, it's an air-water element. Now, air. We haven't gotten to the class about air, but air, I'm going to tell you briefly, air is a sign of spirituality, high intuition, high spiritual vision and wisdom, dreaming, daydreaming, thought processes, anything that uses high levels of mental aptitude is air element based. So when we talk about water and air element, the split element, because between every sign is a split sign. You got earth, air, fire, water, but you have elements that elements that work with both sides. So in this case, we got the air, water. So we're talking about flowing in a high spiritual realm. So when you're talking about spirituality and fluidity and increasing the fluidity of your spirituality, then we're talking about the air or water element mixture. Okay? So when we intercept that water, it never touches the earth, right? Now, if you have two magnetized objects and you place them together, what happens is one desensitizes the other. But by catching it, we already know the earth is a greater magnetic force than the water that falls from the sky. So what happens when the water that falls from the sky, highly magnetized, hits the earth, it becomes demagnetized. You see? So in order for us to catch the magnetized water, the water with the high-tech energy in it, we got to catch it before it hit the ground. Okay? What this means, there are some root workers that hang buckets in trees, okay, to catch that water. Okay? There are some root workers that they would go out into a field and put a huge bowl or whatever bucket and catch that water. Set it on 2 bricks and catch that water before it hits the ground. Because that water is magnetized. And they take that water and make their baths. They add it to their baths. Some people take full baths in rainwater. Some people soak their herbs and roots in pure rainwater. Florida water, rainwater, ocean water. See, there's a difference between soaking your herbs in ocean versus rainwater. There is a difference between the two. Remember, earth water is magnetized, but demagnetized from the atmospheric magnetism. You see, water on the earth is magnetized according to the frequency of the planet Earth, which is about 6.7 hertz. Just off the top of my head, 6.7 hertz, somewhere in that vicinity. The frequency of the planet Earth, which actually coincides with the frequency of the heart. The heart vibrates at about a 7 hertz frequency also. So our heart is in tune with the vibration of the earth. Cool. We'll get to that one day. But when we look at the frequency of water, we catch it. Yes, it does matter if we use glass versus plastic. Plastic is processed in an unnatural way. Glass is more processed naturally. Glass is created by fire, but plastic is created by machinery, so to say, I would say glass is always better. Ceramic is always best because ceramic comes from clay, so a ceramic bowl is always best as a clay bowl. And you want to definitely magnetize your bowl. Now, the way to magnetize your bowl is one way you can do it. You can make a bath to wash your bowl in. And you make your bath with specific herbs. I would say things like basil and thyme and coconut water mixed in with your rainwater. And the secret ingredient, a diazoan magnet, a nice size one, probably the size of a silver dollar, a magnet, and you sit it down in there. Some people use magnetic sand if the sand is actually magnetic. Some people buy these magnetic sand and it ain't sticking to nothing metal. It's just regular sand with black food coloring on it. You want to make sure when you get your magnetic sand or your Lordstones. I got some Lordstones in there just to speak about it. Give me a second. Let me show y'all some Lordstones. Magnetic stones. The Lordstone is a magnetic stone, and this is how it looks. You see, this is a Lordstone. This is the Lordstone, and you can see like here. Let me see if I can get close up. You can see the little small pieces on the Lordstone is still sticking, like the little all of this here. These are like little magnetic pieces that like kind of magnetized to it. But this is a Lordstone, a magnetic stone. So When we talk about water running over stones and stuff like that, this is what we're talking about. This is how the water become magnetized. So when we drop like something like a lodestone here, like a lodestone into our bath for prosperity, you know. So if I wants to drop my lodestone into my bath for prosperity, and then I would let it sit over the new moon. I would let this sit from a new moon to new moon. And then wash myself with it. You see? Because you bring in the magnetism of the energy of the planet Earth and all this other stuff, you bring it forth. So when you bring that energy forth, you can magnetize it by adding a magnetic presence to the work. You see? You added magnetic presence. Magnetism is not only based on your mind and your ability to pull things in. We have to add natural elements that also pull things in. Pyrites, pyrites pulls things in. You see? So we want to use the natural elements that pull things in. And we also want to use our psychic abilities to pull things in. And then we want to use ingredients and we want to use places that suggests strongly that it could pull something in for you. Okay? Questions? Let's go. Let's see what we got. Yeah, when it comes to the lodestone and the properties, and not to get off the subject, but when it comes to the lodestones and the property of the lodestones, it definitely, even the Bible talks about the lodestones. I would say they are a very prominent ingredient in many different African recipes. I'll put it like that for you. So it's very common when you run into people that work within the circumference of an ATR, African traditional religion, that they use many lodestones for attraction purposes and pulling energies. This is something that was very common in African practices, all the way from ancient Kemet, all the way to in West Africa, all the way to the Congo Bantu tribes. It's just a common understanding in Africa that we use the lodestones because the lodestones have great significance and sacredness from our ancestors. So this is why till today we still use them. And they still magnetic. You know what I mean? They're still pulling. They ain't stopped yet. That's my next question. What other stone would I recommend to put in your bath? Well, it just depends on what kind of bath you're taking. You see? When it comes to constructing spirit, well, and we definitely can talk about that. When it comes to constructing spiritual baths, the first thing you should ascertain is, what is this bath for? Why do you need a cleansing? And what are you doing in conjunction with your cleansing? Many times people focus on spiritual baths and not spiritual remedies. Hell, I could take a bath with a Dove soap and I can get out and still be stupid. I can take a bath with 21 herbs, get out the shower, get out the bath, and still be stupid. The underlying tone of the spiritual bath and how and why we use the bath is to suggest to our spirit that it's time to cleanse ourselves of a particular ailment. It is to strongly suggest that to our spirit. So we could have the power, we could empower ourselves to remove a spiritual ailment. You see? So that spiritual bath should be infused with your conscious efforts to change your reality. for yourself from within your own mind and perceptions. Because if you change your own inner being, your own inner thoughts, your own inner perceptions, what happens is everybody around you change their perception of you. Therefore, you're treated differently. Therefore, your reality changes. Therefore, there are your results, your manifestation. You see? And this is part, only part, of what a spiritual bath is supposed to suggest to you. Change and manifestation. And your ability to intune yourself with that change and that manifestation. Okay? So now, when you ask the question about what other stones you could put in your bath, it just really depends on what kind of bath you're making and what it's for. You could be making a spiritual bath for clarity. Okay. If we making a spiritual bath for clarity, I would crush some quartz crystal. Because quartz crystals are neutral. They can hold energy, they can send energy, they can... So many things you can do with quartz. They're like a universal stone. So I would crush the quartz crystals in. Well, after I charge them and consecrate them and done other things with them, I would crush them and put it into my work. Into my bath, I mean to say. If I'm making a bath like that. Now, if I'm making a bath, let's say I'm making a prosperity bath. What kind of stones I'm going to put in there? Of course I'm going to put a lodestone in my... I'm going to go outside with my hammer and my black thick pouch. And I'm going to put a lodestone in that, and I'm going to beat that lodestone. I'm going to beat the prosperity in it. And I'm going to call all my ancestors. I'm going to call all my spirits. I'm going to call everybody I know dead and alive as I beat that lodestone to crush it up, to put it in my bath. That's right. Powder. I'm going to powder it as best as I could. Because it's an attraction. Tracks. Pyrites is another. I got another pyrite right there. Pyrite is another. Crush them up. Put it inside my work. Or my bath. And I wash myself with it. You see? Now, let's say you're making a bath for a new job, a job bath. What kind of stone you going to put in that? You might want to put a tiger eye, maybe, perhaps. Tiger eye. You know? Or something like a jade. You know? But let's say you're making a protection bath. What kind of stones would you put in the protection bath? I'll probably put an onyx or a black tourmaline. You know? Just off the top of my head. You see what I'm saying? And that's right, mistress. Also use a stone that doesn't change properties when it gets wet. See, that turns you into a scientist at that point. Because there are certain stones that when they're used in conjunction with each other, that those stones kind of cancel out the magnetic properties of each other. Or one stone suck the magnetism off of the other stone. And see, this is where you're either going to have two things to determine what's going on with the stones. You're either going to have a high level of energy receptiveness to understand and feel the energy like, oh, hold up, this stone here doesn't have as much energy as that. Either you're going to have the energetic receptiveness, or you're a scientist and you just know the properties of stones. Hold up, this stone naturally cancels out the other stone because of the magnetic principle of the equation of Albert Einstein. You know what I mean? So either you're a scientist or you're spiritually gifted to be able to feel the energies. And this is why so many people work with stones, and because feeling the energy of stones is you feeling the energy of the earth. And if you familiarize yourself with how stones feel, you can familiarize yourself with the energy of specific places. Now, many of us walk into places before and we're like, hold up, man, the energy ain't right here. You see? Because that's us reading the energy vortex of a place. Every place has one. The river got a vortex. The forest got a vortex. Your house got a vortex. See? All right. Now, in any case, it's good to have, hold up, what she said? Micaiah says, in that case, it's good to have base stones like clear quartz to help the stones to work well together. Yes, as a rule, a general rule, many practitioners use quartz in the midst of all kind of other stones because of that nature. A quartz crystal can be programmed or deprogrammed easily. Um, I often use the scenario about the Superman movie, the old Superman movie with Joel, and he fly Lois Lane up to the pole, and they took this huge crystal, quartz crystal, either that or was a selenite crystal, and they put it down into the ice, the huge crystal they put down into the ice, and when they placed that crystal down into the ice, the image of his dead father came up. You know, the dead father's spirit showed up. You see? The quartz crystal did all of that. It stored that information of Superman's genetic history as far as the science of the movie goes. But in reality, the quartz crystal, the quartz cave, if many of us do research, we find that quartz grow in huge 100-pound crystals inside of caves, actually. And people who have been inside a quartz cave understand and they know that the energy in there is magnificent. You see, plenty of people go there as tourists into quartz caves just to, take a nap, to clear and balance their bodies. So the quartz crystal, like I say, is always in the midst of other crystals as a balancing crystal. The point I'm getting to. It's a balancing crystal. So, but what you have to do, you have to make sure that your crystal has neutral energy on it. So you have to neutralize it. So you have to let your quartz crystal get a little bit of everything, so that nothing can kind of cancel out the other in the midst of a quartz. So let's say you're doing some balancing work. You want some protection, but you also want some spiritual insight. So let's say you got an aquamarine, a quartz, and a black obsidian. Now, the black obsidian will provide you protection. The aquamarine will provide you with that spiritual vision and that clarity of thought and mind. Now, neither one really has anything to do with each other. So that they don't cancel out one another, what happens is, voila, the quartz crystal is in the presence of it. You've charged the quartz with the black obsidian, and you've also charged the quartz with the aquamarine, and as a result, it contains the energy of both crystals. And now it does contain the energy of both crystals. You can use it together. None will cancel out the other because of the presence of the quartz. You see? And that comes from you charging crystals separately with one another. So you might charge the quartz with the black obsidian for a certain amount of time, and then you charge the aquamarine with the quartz a certain amount of time. Neither one cancels out the other, because both the quartz would absorb energy from both crystals. You get it? Okay, let's see if we got any questions out there. All right, Micaiah, I hope that explains your question. All right, we're winding down to the last 10 minutes of the class. So here's what we're going to do. I'm waiting on questions. Now, when it comes to working with the water element, I gave you guys, I think, a pretty decent visual and explanation as to how to work with some of the water spirits in particular ways. There's other ways of working with them. I know most of you guys are familiar with using jars, so I talked about tying the work to the tree and letting it flow with the waters. I talked about taking the jar and submerging it into the murky waters and the crisscross waters that run left and right. And we also talked about using rainwater. I have some hurricane rainwater right there. And that's a different story from regular rainwater, because the hurricane's energy is in that water. I might drink some. Who knows? But the energy is there. So I would use that to boost work. Boost work. Yeah, definitely we can talk about that. The water under the bed. That's a real old hoodoo technique. I think I might have learned that one from a friend of mine. I'll put it like that. I remember waking up one night, and I'm gonna tell y'all this story. I remember waking up one night. It was a long time ago, very long time ago. And I woke up one night, my hand was in a bowl of water, and I'm talking, telling everything, and I'm like, what the, you know? And I was like, wow, man. And she had me good. She had my hand in the bowl of water, and she was asking me, where you been at, who you been with. It was kind of interesting. When I woke up out of it, I'm like, whoa, I'm waking up, talking my heart out. You know what I mean? And what happened, I actually learned then about the essence of how powerful water could be, you know. And I'm gonna share that with y'all. Placing somebody's hand who's sleeping, you put their right hand, not the whole hand, just the fingertips, into a bowl of water, warm water. You know, be sweet on them. You can mix a little honey, a little tiny little honey in that warm water, and slide it. You know, some people sleep with their hand off the bed and all that. Slide their hand right up in that water and rub the hand, rub it lightly, and start talking to that person, and that person will talk in their sleep, and they'll tell you everything that you need to know. Interesting, it has happened to me, so I am a firm knower that works. Um, but when it comes to under the bed, there's different things you can do. You have to connect, and I would get water, right? And the best way to do it, and everybody cheat, trust me, everybody uses sink water. Everybody do it. Everybody cheat. But really using beach water, and you place the beach water in a bowl, or rain water in a bowl, not thunderstorm water. Thunderstorm might give you an interesting dream you might not be ready for. Um, but regular rain water or river water, you place it under your bed, directly under, well, like under more like your chest cavity area, not your head. You can, but doesn't matter. But anywhere above your waist, you place that bowl on the side of the bed that you sleep on. Part of that, make sure I'm good. And what happens is, when you place that bowl under the water like that, under the bed like that, it becomes a vortex. It becomes an open channel, because you have to remember what I said earlier. Water transmits consciousness. So while you're sleeping, that conscious reality that's under your bed is open. So what happens is, when you go to sleep, you become open, right? And that conscious reality under your bed becomes open, right? Yeah. So when your spirit comes out of your body, the astral travel while you're asleep, guess what? It can go straight through that bowl of water into any reality it chooses to. Remember, I told you the oceans and water holds the human history, consciousness, and human history. It holds everything. So when you go to sleep and your soul comes out of your body, the astral travel, and you slip through that bowl of water, you have visions in your dreams of things that would benefit you, just depending on when I normally tell my clients to do that, I'm doing something on my end to ensure their protection. Okay? And when you do it in your end, you have to do things to ensure your protection. That's why you have to take a protection bath before you do it. Or you should take a protection bath before you do something like that. Alrighty. So we are back. I lost consciousness for a second. I'm on my phone. But we're back. Um, Let me make sure. Let me get out my questions and see who's. All right, we should be finished buffering by now because I'm back. So y'all bear with me. Y'all still with me? Yeah, hit the refresh button one more time. Y'all should be good. All right. So what we was talking about before we was disconnected, we was talking about. I was asked a question. Let me scroll back to that question.
The water under the bed.
About the water under the bed. And that's where we was at. We was at the water under the bed. And I was explaining to I think it was Micaiah, Luciana, asked me about the water under the bed and how it works. And I was explaining that the water under the bed works in a way that the oceans and the waters of the earth and the waters of your body, it stores consciousness. So one of the ways of traveling through time and traveling through space actually is through water. There are many rituals where people submerge themselves in water and meditate. You can actually, like when you go in your bathtub and you put specific vision herbs into your bath, specific vision herbs for specific things that you've consecrated and done certain things with. One way of enhancing spiritual visions with a bath is to place certain ingredients into your bath. One, ammonia. Ammonia, just a capful into your bath. Basil for prosperity and other live herbs. Like me, for example, I would get non-sporous plants and trees that are on the bank's property. Non-sporous. Because if you're allergic to pollen or whatever, you're going to need to wash it. So when you pick leaves off of a tree, a random tree, yes, random. You don't have to have a certain type of tree for prosperity. But the point of the tree, or let's say these 4 trees on the 4 corners of a Wells Fargo. So you go to one to the left side, you get some leaves off that tree. You get 5 leaves off a tree. In the front, 5 leaves off the tree. In the back, 5 leaves off a tree. On the right, 5 leaves off a tree. On the left side of that bank. And you take those leaves and you go wash them in rainwater, olive oil, and cinnamon and honey. You go wash those leaves in that. And basil. I throw basil in it. I'm just a basil man. Money, prosperity, abundance, happiness, well-being. So we mix these things together and we wash the leaves in it. And after you wash the leaves in it, you use the leaves in your work. You see? Y'all got the principle that we ain't had to use nothing in particular. We used the elements of the organic plants and trees on the property. You see? Doesn't have to be anything in particular. It's because those plants, those trees, possess the symbiotic energy of that locality. So when you go to a bank and you get the leaves of the trees at a bank and you go mix it in your work and you make a bath, a spiritual bath, you wash it and you put it into your bath. You take your stones, all your magnetic stones. Some people put magnetic sand in their bath. It's a pinch. Magnetic stones in their bath. They sit them up against the sides of the bath or in the water with them. Some women put magnetic stones between their legs and do their meditation thing, the yoni power healing ritual witchcraft thing. It works. They be putting it on them dudes that had some on me, so I know it works. And there's very creative ways. using crystals in your bath and extracting elements out of nature. Like I say, the prosperity bath is probably the best one because you go to all the most prosperous places and you get the leaves off the trees. And remember to pay homage to the earth when you do that. You know, you want to leave a penny there, or you might have a piece of fruit and you leave the fruit there, or you pour some honey on that tree. But you have to do something to show reverence and honor to the tree and the ancestors. When you extract those things, you wash them and you put it into your bath to pull and draw on the energy of the bank. And you sit there and you do a meditation. Go into a state of trance and you see, feel, and empower yourself, already achieving your goal and your objective. But then when you get out that bath, what are you going to do then? You just took a prosperity bath. You attuned yourself with the water energies. So what are you going to do then? You have to be fluid as a person. You have to be fluid in accomplishing your goal. You have to be fluid in receiving that happiness that you're seeking for. You have to be consistent, constant. You have to flow with it. That means you have to put action behind the bath. Everything that you visualized for yourself, you have to materialize with your feet when you step out of the tub. Right feet first, right feet last. That's the way I look at it, you know. So any questions here? And these are just some general sharing ideas on how you can build your own root work, how you can attack your own abundance, you know? So when I'm talking about making that bath, let you take it, like I got some mint down there. I like mint. But you put the mint in there, peppermint, anything that's sweet and attractive. It doesn't have to be a specific ingredient. It's about what works for you. You see, now I can give you the general ideas. Of course I can. But you have to build your ideas according to what attracts you through your DNA connection with it. Think about what your parents did. Think about what your grandparents did. Think about what they have done in any given situation. Look at what's in your backyard. Look at what's in your locality. Okay? And extract those things. There's some things we're going to buy, of course. There's some things we just hooked on. But for the most part, when we buy our herbs and buy our stuff, always use live ingredients. Always, I don't care. If you're doing a prosperity spell, and let's say you have to order some stuff. You order some stuff, cool. But you still need to go to that, you still should. I always tell my people you still need to go to the bank and get some live ingredients from some place that harnesses that energy directly. So you can order all your herbs, order all your stuff, yeah, mix that, cool. But you have to put, or should put, that element that comes from the locality of a place that harnesses and generates that energy. A bank, Walmart, McDonald's, places that generate that energy. Put the essence of that in there too to magnify your work. To let the spirits know this is the kind of prosperity you're seeking. Same kind of prosperity you find out. Now that's a good question, Tornil. Tornil asked the question, when using animal totem spirits, does the animal have to be dead? Wow. Now let me tell you how that goes. No, you don't have to take that question back. That's a really, really devastating question. When using totem animal spirits, and I know that's off track from the water spirit class, but when using totem animal spirits, there's two different perceptions in African traditional spirituality, I think, for the most part. Two different perceptions. One perception is that releasing the animal spirits, by sacrificing the animal, you release the animal spirit, and then you control the animal spirit and guide it to do your work for you in the spirit realm. Okay? And then on the other side, there is, like in my culture, more or less, there are more people in my culture that don't sacrifice. In the Geechee Gala, we don't cut. Most people, they feed animals. You see? That's the other way of working with the totem spirit. I could put an offering. Let's say, well, I ain't gonna say, I could usually go to the cemetery, and when I go to the cemetery, there's some foxes out there. So when I want to work with the totem animal spirits, I feed them. But I feed them with certain foods that I've done ritually, you see, for a specific purpose. So when they eat it, my manifestation goes into the spirit realm. It's the work is designed like that. That's more complex work, but yes, it can happen. You said, can we use hair or shedding? What are you talking about exactly? The hair from what? And for what purpose? I'm waiting on that. I'm waiting on that answer to that question. I mean, because you can use your hair and anything prosperous. You can use your sheddings and anything prosperous for you. I would never suggest that anybody use their hair and something that's, anything binding, because the binding work could go wrong and you can get binded to the wrong thing. So you don't want to really use your hair in anything unless it's something about prosperity and abundance. I would never put my essence on anything unless it's about prosperity and abundance. Not even on love work. Sometimes you do some love work, put your essence on it, and you done change your mind. Now you got to change your magic. You know what I mean? Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Cats, dogs, snakes. Yeah, exactly. Those things can be used in root works most definitely. It just depends on what direction you're going at with the work. A lot of people want to know how to use a snake skin, and it's not about that. Well, it is, but it ain't. You know what I mean? It's more about understanding the concept. Because once you understand the concept of how to use totem spirits, how to use totem animals, and what capacity should you use them and when you should use them, once you understand those concepts, you won't ask questions about, can I use a snake? Can I use this? You see what I'm saying? And this is why I teach the way I teach. Because once you understand the way that the universe works, the way that nature works, you won't have to ask those questions because you will learn to intuitively know. See? And you won't second guess yourself. So in conclusion, if there's not any more questions, in conclusion, the water spirits, the water energy, the consciousness, and everything that we do, the scrying and everything that we do is based on the fact that water transfers energy and transfers consciousness. And because it does, this is why we offer water to our ancestral spirits, because it connects us to the ancestral realm. And not just simply having water on your altar is enough. We should master the art of scrying into the water. So when we place water on our ancestral altars, that water is not just sitting there. That water is a conduit of spiritual information between us and our ancestors. So that's why it's important to learn how to scry into water, because that is the truest reason why water is on your ancestral altar, for you to scry into, for you to look into your spiritual consciousness of your ancestral bloodline and find answers for questions that you never could really answer on your own, or with the help of someone in the physical realm. Because some problems we have in our life, some questions that we have in our minds, can only be answered spiritually. And this is why, as a root worker, you should learn how to scry into water. It's a very strong technique, and it's a very great technique that's used. And it's something that probably most likely hidden from most people. They just think, well, I put a cup of water in my ancestor's altar. That's all I need to do. No. You have to learn how to scry into the water because that's the purpose of it being on your altar. And that's the main message that I want to get you guys today, that water transmits consciousness. And one of the secrets being held back from people who work with ancestral altars and the water on the altar is that it's used to scry. So when you communicate with your ancestors, you can do readings and you look into the water and you see images. But you have to develop your psychic abilities to be able to do that. And this is one of the secrets that root workers use when we look into water. Okay? So with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed the class. I hope everybody learned something as far as the conceptualization of working with water spirits and energies and setting up your sacred space to work in, things like that. And if you have any questions about the class, if you have any questions about the videos and things like that, feel free to email me. If you watch the video again, I'm going to leave the link up for you guys to watch a few more times. If you watch the link again and you have any more questions, feel free to email me. Anything that I've spoken about in this class, I'm open to talk to any one of you guys via email about it. And we can elaborate on a one-on-one basis. I'm open for that because I think that most of us need to be really taught on how to think like root workers. Because once you learn how to think like one, you don't have to be taught. So with that, y'all have a great night. I hope that you guys really appreciated the knowledge that I gave you guys tonight. And I will see you guys hopefully in the next class. That's right. The next class is going to be the fire element. I am going to show you guys how to cleanse yourself with fire. I'm going to show you guys how to cleanse yourself actually with a machete. And I'm going to talk about the snake plant a little bit. I have a little snake plant right there, but I have a big one out back. We're going to talk about the snake plant and why the machetes in it in Geechee culture, and why we keep the snake plants in our house and what's the significance of it in retrospect to the Geechee culture and even hoodoo. And I'm going to share some information about, hopefully we can peel out this video that our Mistress of Fortune took in Cuba and show you some guys some pictures of in Cuba, the black Cubans, and how they actually, their houses look like our granny houses, same plants. Same plants Granny got on her porch. You go to the black granny in Cuba, she got the same plants. Same snake plant we got now, they got the same plants. So we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about the fire element and how to work the fire element outside. I'm going to make sure that we got good weather, and I want to go in the woods and do some fire rituals for y'all and show y'all how to work with the fire elements and call up fire spirits into your life to manifest some great things and to remove blockages. So bear with me, roll with me. We'll be back in effect in another 2-3 weeks with the fire element class. I'm going to have the information out shortly. We're going to be live in effect, and we're going to be live out in the woods with the fire elements, and we're going to be setting some things on fire. So nobody dial 911 we will have our fire extinguishers on deck. All right? So y'all have a great night. Peace, love, and hair grease. It's Medicine Man, and I'm out.